Happy day, hooray, you and me, us and me, all across that old way.
Gulliver's Travels. Let's go all the way back to the late 1930s, when the most revolutionary movie at the time was Walt Disney's first feature-length cartoon, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. While still considered one of the most important and greatest animated films that very few movies are able to reach to its level to this day, it was a phenomenon back when it was released, and a true must-see movie when it was on the big screen. Naturally, others have noticed the fame and glory Walt was getting and immediately took action to try to replicate the success of Snow White. Enter Paramount Pictures, whom back then was one of Walt's biggest competitors in the animation field with their industry icons of their own, Max and Dave Fleischer, the brothers that brought you characters like Betty Boop and Popeye. Since the brothers were on board to do it because they wanted to make an animated movie for as long as Walt wanted to make his, the Fleischer's animation team quickly went to work on their version of Snow White by adapting the 1726 novel by Jonathan Swift. And when it was released in 1939, did it succeed in being the next Snow White? Well, kinda, yeah. Not in the long run, but it was a big hit when it first came out, and you'll see across this review how successful it got, and even learn the familiar names that worked on it. So now that we're crashing into Lilliput, will we end up falling in love with the film and stay faithful forever to this adaptation? Or will we be like King Bombo and declare war on the movie? Let's find out. The story. One thing I like to note is that even if this was the animated feature released after Snow White, this is actually not the first animated film to adapt Gulliver's Travels. That was released almost 5 years prior as the 5th animated feature ever made, The New Gulliver, which was a stop-motion live-action hybrid made in Russia, meaning that this travel has a communist twist, comrades! Now it suddenly makes sense why they didn't directly call it Gulliver's Travels, because the Lilliputians would just barge in and say, "Our travels." But back onto Fleischer's Gulliver, this only adapts the first part of the novel where Gulliver finds himself in the island of Lilliput and meets the tiny inhabitants who are in the middle of a war with a neighboring island caused by a conflict of which song to sing during the wedding of the children of the two kings. It makes sense to focus on the most popular moment of the book, but that also explains a crucial problem with its storytelling. Like many film adaptations of books with few pages, the movie has this issue of dragging its scenes so long while contributing little to the story. This is especially a problem when the movie is only 76 minutes long, yet there are times when it feels like it just never ends. What is possibly the guiltiest example of this is the moment between Gabby waking up the village that there is a giant on the beach, going to said beach to find him, tying him up, and bringing him to the king's castle, which I counted, and all that took a total of 16 minutes. Nothing to contribute to the wedding narrative, no musical numbers during, and there isn't much dialogue to help fill the time. It's literally more than a fifth of the movie just to take the sleeping Gulliver from one place to another. Sure, there are some cute animations that happen while the villagers tie him, but when that takes a good chunk of the movie without advancing the story or fill the time with a song, that part alone can feel like 76 minutes. Because those scenes can just tediously drag on, the moments when the story does come in can feel like a blessing, since it's a promise that something might actually happen that's worth paying attention to. And when it comes to the story itself, well, let's be honest, you can't expect anything complex here. As it is a simple fairy tale based film, the narrative is very straightforward where even the youngest kids can comprehend what's going on and what could happen later. And the tone can be unbelievably cheesy. Like, I'm talking about near satire levels of cheesiness where the emotions are ridiculously played up. I know this type of mood is considered commonplace for films in the 1930s, especially those geared more towards kids, but even Disney's cartoons are less exaggerated than this.
But Glory, poor little Glory.
However, one thing that I will give the story credit is that it's noticeable that its heart is in the right place. Despite its purpose, it doesn't actually feel like a Snow White cash-in, and more like it wants to genuinely tell a fairy tale with animation. Even as a cartoon, while not all the time, it does have its moments when the whimsy and the humor can be engaging and make the viewing fun. It's honestly hard to hate it when it does make its good intentions clear, and its faults won't stop you from finding an appreciation for what it did right. The story can have some problems, actually a lot of problems, but it does manage to capture that fairy tale heart. The animation. For the Fleischers' feature debut, they wanted to get some top animators in Hollywood, along with their already existing crew, to make this look the best it can be. Even grabbing some of Disney's animators and their old colleagues like Grim Natwick to work on the animation, and the results certainly took a page from Snow White. But there is a vast difference. One technique that it does emulate from the Disney film is animating the more human characters realistically and the comedic ones more like a cartoon. In Snow White, it helps emphasize the type of roles that the characters play, but their style isn't too different so that they can all fit in the same world, something that would become somewhat of a tradition in Walt's later films. In Gulliver's Travels, on the other hand, they went in two completely different directions. While the Lilliputians are at rubber hose levels of cartoony where every move they make is silly and exaggerated, Gulliver is entirely rotoscope where even the lighting works differently on him. Technically, the prince and the princess are also rotoscoped, but their style did blend well amongst the Lilliputians. I get that Gulliver is meant to be the big outsider, but there is a difference between someone who's from out of this world and someone who looks like he belongs in a different movie.
I must be going. Ahoy, ahoy.
My.
I know, that was a bit rough to go after it for that one detail, but honestly, that's my only criticism with the animation. The rest actually looks great. Even with that stark difference, they do look good individually. Like the people of Lilliput have that same comical finesse in their movements that the animators have mastered when working on Popeye, and Gulliver himself does capture that grand size while well adapting the actor's film movements onto the cells. Also, the backgrounds successfully capture that fairy tale feeling of using watercolor-like backgrounds to immerse the audience in the world of Lilliput. Some could argue that it's just a typical medieval kingdom, but it does capture the classic style of the way old animation captures them, and this movie does it nicely. As for the effects, there isn't a whole lot to highlight other than the rocks that King Bombo's army throws and the splashing waters, but I'd say that they are good. They're not in the levels of what's been done a few months later in Disney's Pinocchio. Then again, that might not be a fair comparison because that's like the best of the best. But they are still impressive to look at in terms of their craftsmanship. As much as Disney's, the animation of the Fleischers have always been admired by many animation enthusiasts to this day, and Gulliver's Travels proved that they could make fairy tale animation about as good as Walt's team. The characters. As part of the package of making a simple fairy tale movie, it must also come with simple characters. Sadly, the one downfall with the cast is that they lack depth. They don't go through some complex arc or have any side plots where they deal with any personal problems that they try to resolve in a believable manner. What you see is what you get, and if they have more than one trait, it's to help out with the comedy. Then again, I will give them credit that they do have some good voice acting to help give them some well-needed charm, like radio announcer Sam Parker, writing and voice veteran Jack Mercer, Looney Tunes writer Ted Pierce, and the original voice of Goofy, Pinto Colvig. I might as well start off with the big man himself, Gulliver, and honestly, I really like this guy. Like, he's been nothing but a cool dude throughout. In a way, he's the gentle giant that befriends the people of Lilliput and does what he can to help anyone out. But he's not an entire softie though. He is still aware that he's a giant compared to everyone else. So when times get tough, like King Bombo attacking the kingdom, then he won't hesitate to go and stop the nonsense. Even in a fairy tale world, he's the most reasonable and the one with the most common sense. And I can't help but respect him for that.
Then let me present myself. My name is Gulliver, Your Majesty. Lemuel Gulliver, a shipwrecked sailor. At your service.
Well, welcome to Lilliput, Mr. Gulliver. Mr. Gulliver, can you fight?
Well, Your Majesty, I can lick anybody my size.
There is also the second star of the film, Gabby, who is said to be the eccentric and hot-headed town crier, but he seems more like the second-in-command to the king. And yes, I say he is a star because how else can you explain his own set of cartoons he got after the movie's release? And the craziest thing is that he is not the only one either. Even Bombo's spies, who are like the evil comedic henchmen, have some of their own. Seriously, you have no idea how popular this was back then. Moving on, there are the two rulers of their own land, King Little of Lilliput and King Bombo of Blefuscu. They both have contrasting personalities, where one is gentler and more timid, and the other is more brash, loud, and always the first to resort to violence. They both want what's best for their kids and their marriage, but they can't get over their heads with their own traditions, which is why they can end up getting into conflicts over things that are as small as a wedding song. And speaking of the wedding, there is also the loving couple of the film, Princess Glory and Prince David. And the more they are on screen, the more frustrating they are because they do nothing to help solve the problem. I mean, the main conflict of the feature is their marriage, yet all they do is cry and pout about how this war is separating them without even talking to their dads. I mean, it's their wedding! Don't they have a say about how things are gonna be? In fact, they barely even talk at all. Isn't there anything they could say to solve the issue without the help of Gulliver?
David, look. Gulliver's thunder machine.
Wait here, Glory.
David.
On second thought, maybe the best thing they could do is show less of their acting skills. Sure, they're not great characters, but they do serve their main job. Be funny, progress a simple plot, and help enhance that fairy tale whimsy. They did what they're supposed to do, and I'm okay with that. The songs. As the movie's biggest goal is to replicate Snow White in order to achieve the same success, it also copied the movie's format of being a musical, with songs mostly made by Leo Robin and Ralph Ranger. Nowadays, you'd be lucky to find someone who knows at least one song from this film. But back then, they were actually some pretty popular hits, even to the point where the score and the song Faithful Forever were nominated for an Oscar. But both lost to some other movie, I don't know, it's some weird thing with a robot, a lion, a scarecrow, and a teenager pretending to be a little girl. I don't think anyone has heard of it. Anyways, back on to Gulliver. Amongst all the elements in the film, the songs are the closest to be just like Snow White. And when I say the closest, I mean the ones that came dangerously close to having Disney's lawyers go,
Hi-ho, hi-ho, it's off to court we go.
In fact, take a listen and see if you can connect them with a Snow White song.
What's a rainy day? Never mind that cloud. Behind that cloud you'll find a golden ray.
Happy day. Loo-loo-loo-loo-loo-lay. You and me, us and me, all the clouds have rolled away. There are 9 owls in the daylight.
Silly idea, night owls in the daylight.
I hear a dream all day. Forever.
Whatever I do, remember I'm true.
But here's the catch. Just when you think they seem plagiaristic, they take a turn just at the last minute to make themselves different, resulting them to be obviously similar, but not considered a ripoff. But when taking away the Snow White comparisons, they're fine. They're the type of songs that fit in the genres that were popular at the time, but have little influence today. Some have that soothing tone that make it relaxing and easy to listen to, like I Hear a Dream and Faithful Forever, but others have that tone that it's hard to look past how it's trying to emulate that Disney style. And because of that, they don't have that strong memorability to thrive as their own single. On the other hand, like with most of the elements of the picture, they serve their purpose to help enhance the film to provide a bit of entertainment during the viewer's stay in Lilliput. The songs are certainly no Snow White's, but they're not bad either. While it did accomplish to capitalize on the success of Snow White on its initial release, did it succeed in achieving the quality of Snow White? Honestly, not really, but it was a decent effort. The 1939 Gulliver's Travels is an interesting piece of animation showing the Fleischer brothers trying to be Disney. It's obviously far from Walt's accomplishments, especially with that problematic writing that caused a simple story that can drag on, one-dimensional characters, and some forgettable songs, but most of the film can be considered passable while also delivering a likable title character, great animation, and that timeless fairy tale charm. As it is an old film that not many have heard of, you might think that this would be a hard find, right? Actually, it's way easier than you may think. Since this is in the public domain, you can check it out for free on YouTube. Just write down Gulliver's Travels movie, ignore Jack Black, and you'll find a few that's uploaded in its entirety. I wouldn't say that you must check it out, but I'd say it's worth seeing to expand your animation knowledge. Like Lilliput itself, it's not really an unforgettable experience, but more like a small, pleasant discovery. Hey guys, this is Animat, and what a fascinating movie that we just saw right there. Honestly, I would definitely take Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs over this movie any day of the week, but still though, I am actually glad that I got the chance to actually go and analyze this one. It was a very fascinating movie, especially one that dates back even before 1940. It's always fascinating to look into the very beginnings of animation, especially when it comes to the Fleischer brothers' theatrical debut, like with Gulliver's Travels. I remember a while ago I saw Mr. Bug Goes to Town, and now I can include this one as well. So a very interesting movie, definitely worth watching just for the animation sake of it all. But anyways, now it is time that we shall go and move on from Gulliver's Travels, and we shall head right into a Patreon request. and this time around it shall be from Red Bandit. So, if you guys would like to be like Red Bandit and you want to go and support my work and get some amazing rewards at the same time, including, but not limited to, watching my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you guys would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is just write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. So, with that said, what is it that Red Bandit asked me to go and review this time? Well, funny enough though, it's actually quite a coincidence, but we're actually going to do another major travel. But instead of going with the Fleischers to go into Lilliput, we're going to be joining Disney to go on one of their most ambitious adventures that they have ever took. One that will be taking us to a lost civilization. Not a musical, but definitely a journey that will contain a lot of action to find this lost empire.